from the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the energy and food crisis that we've all lived, the challenges associated with climate change, and the geopolitical tensions associated with the war in Ukraine. Talks about the way forward regarding sovereign debt have been in the limelight, especially when we bear in mind that the first casualty of this polycrisis has been the sovereign debt situation of countries globally, and very much the emerging and developing world. Against a backdrop of rising interest rates, capital outflows, stalling growth, plummeting currencies, and increased frequencies of natural catastrophes, the debate about which direction to take regarding the future of sovereign debt has never been so pertinent. To do justice to the debate, however, we need to recast debt using an appropriate and well-balanced context. Not all debt is malignant. Taking a stroll down memory lane, one cannot be oblivious to the various episodes of heavy sovereign indebtedness that plagued many parts of Latin America and Africa in the 1980s, partly as a result of the oil price hikes, which accentuated the headaches of many oil importers and imperiled their current account situations, and partly also due to the hyperinflationary episodes that was a ubiquitous feature of that decade due to profligate fiscal policies. As a result, many countries fretted with the so-called debt overhang syndrome, which swept them inside a vicious circle and cycle of increased external indebtedness, rising risk premia, higher interest rates, higher budget deficits, and higher debts. Declines in commodity prices also had their contribution to that tall order, and external situation of commodity exporters were further deteriorated. Now, fast way forward to recent times, the COVID-19 pandemic, thoughts of which are still very vivid in all our minds, necessitated extraordinary measures to stave off the consequences of an economic crisis. As you may be aware, for such black swan events, policymakers around the world had to dig deep into their repertoire of measures and fish out extraordinary but specially calibrated measures to prevent real stoppages from percolating through to the financial sector, a trajectory that we opted to adopt here in Mauritius also. In so doing, sovereign debt worldwide basically was affected. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last year, the mathematics of sovereign debt dynamics has become more complicated. Rising interest rates from monetary policy tightening globally have led to increased debt servicing costs. One has to be cognizant of the fact that not all is doom and gloom yet, though. The issue about debt dynamics is that it should not be accumulated till the point when it becomes unsustainable, that is, starting to spiral out of control, and therefore will require painstaking macroeconomic adjustments in the future. Many of us are familiar with the famous law of motion equation of debt dynamics, which posits that to grow out of debt sustainably, it is imperative to lay the foundation for strong macroeconomic performance. In the case of Mauritius, efforts have been deployed at all levels on numerous fronts for a favorable macroeconomic upturn and a very healthy debt trajectory. It is further confirmed by the recent ratings by both S&P and Moody's, confirming the trajectory that Mauritius has taken and reaffirming investors' confidence in our jurisdiction. More so that Mauritius remains among the only 2 countries in the continent to be investment grade. Ladies and gentlemen, the road of recovery has recently seen sovereigns favoring more sustainable debt instruments as well. With the onset of extreme weather-related disturbances, countries are earmarking a relatively greater share of their fiscal space to build their resilience to fiscal and transition risk. In parallel, on the funding side, the sustainable bond market continues to develop rapidly as well. These instruments serve as a catalyst for mobilizing capital towards projects that address environmental, social, and governance challenges, the famous ESG. The ESG debt universe is fast approaching the $5 trillion mark, up from $3.4 trillion back in 2021. Many of you will also recall that at the COP26 in Glasgow, governments committed to finance the transition to a greener future. As an international financial center in Mauritius, we ambition to evolve as a green finance hub for the region as well. In this respect, the Bank of Mauritius has been very active, and I would say very proactive also, in promoting the sustainability agenda amongst its regulators. In June 2021, we released a guide for the issue of sustainable bonds, paving a way for the issue of green and sustainable bonds in Mauritius. We also established our Climate Change Center in October 2021, and in June last year, the guideline on climate-related and environmental financial risk management was issued. In the area of reserves management, I'm pleased to say that we have also embedded sustainability consideration within our internal investment strategies. And I've been encouraging all banks in the country to also adopt sustainable considerations within their own investment strategies. In the journey that we are charting for Mauritius as an international financial center of choice in sustainable finance, banks, both locally and regionally, will have a critical role to play. I would here make an appeal to all banks not to shy away from exploring opportunities on this new trajectory and to join us in creating more depth and breadth for sustainable and ESG-related finance for the good of our continent. I also wish to take this opportunity to make a call on all African central banks and non-banking financial services regulators to join hands in the region in creating the appropriate regulatory regime to support the development of sustainable finance across our continent. Ladies and gentlemen, proper management of sovereign debt requires cross-fertilization of sound policies and discipline from related policy areas, including both fiscal and monetary policy. I have no doubt that the topics on the agenda over these 2 days for the workshop will spark enriching and interactive exchanges and promote further dialogue amongst all relevant stakeholders. I understand that more than 250 delegates are joining us virtually from many parts of the world as well. I look forward to rich discussions happening over the next 2 days, and I also look forward for nurturing further collaboration together with the OECD on such workshops of high pertinence to our region in the future. Before ending, I would like to thank the members of my governing board, as well as the staff of the Regional Centre of Excellence for their continued support and delivery with respect to the mandate of the RCE. With these words, I wish to thank you all for your attention and also wish you fruitful deliberations over the remaining sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Ladies and gentlemen, the next speech will be delivered by our esteemed guest, the Honourable Minister Mahen Kumar Siratan, Minister of Financial Services and Good Governance. The Honourable Minister Siratan's work has been instrumental in strengthening our country's regulatory framework and in building trust and confidence among investors and consumers. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the Honourable Minister Mahen Kumar Siratan to come on stage and lead the next speech.
Thank you. My colleague, Dr. the Honourable Ranganathan Pradadachi, Minister of Finance, Planning and Development, Mr. Habesh Sigulam, Governor, Bank of Mauritius, and the Chairman of the RC Governing Board, heads and members of the commissions in Mauritius, Mr. Kuna Yerukunendu, Chairperson of the Financial Services Commission, and also first Deputy Governor of the Bank of Mauritius, Madame Gopal, second Deputy Governor of the Bank of Mauritius, board members of the FSC, members and directors of the governing boards of the RC, board members of the Bank of Mauritius, Mr. Kamini Dinoya, Director for Financial and Enterprise Affairs of the OECD, chairpersons of institutions present here today, distinguished panelists and speakers, captains of the industry, distinguished guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observers, a very good morning to you all. It gives me immense pleasure to be here at this Regional Center of Excellence and to be associated with such a highly topical event. I would wish to thank you all for being here and thank you to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, for the trust you have placed in Mauritius to host this Regional Center of Excellence and also for the commitment taken for capacity building. I take the opportunity to congratulate the Regional Center of Excellence and the OECD for successfully bringing together this formidable lineup of distinguished speakers who have traveled from far to share international experiences. The sharing of country practices reinforce the power of learning from one another and working together to address common challenges. I have been through the agenda with much interest, and I'm certain that it promises to be a productive workshop with robust discussions on the debt management process. The aim of governments is to ensure the smooth funding of growth and development and promote the efficient functioning of financial markets. This forum will provide an excellent platform to reflect on current strains and challenges in debt markets, how we can adapt to longer-term structural changes, and discuss global trends and economic outlook that are relevant to debt markets and debt management. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this workshop could not have been more relevant and timely. We are here because we are aware, we are concerned, and we are looking for solutions after COVID-19 has forced emerging and developing economies to exceed already record high sovereign debt levels to mitigate the economic impacts of the crisis on families and domestic economies. Studies show that the average total debt burden among low and middle income countries increased by roughly 9 percentage points of gross domestic product during the first year of the pandemic, compared with an average annual increase of 1.9 percentage points over the previous decade. It is said that more than half of low-income economies are near or in debt distress, restricting the possibility of borrowing further. As we know, ladies and gentlemen, that the impacts of debt crisis do not respect boundaries. They cascade and overspill on the global economy. The resulting buildup of sovereign debt poses significant risk to the worldwide economic recovery. On the local front, Statistics Mauritius has published that the external debt increased to 86,633 million rupees in the first quarter of 2023 from 81,788 million rupees in the fourth quarter of 2022. So we also have to learn from this workshop to properly and proactively deal with the situation. Ladies and gentlemen, as past financial crises have shown, debt needs to be managed prudently and it has to be transparent. The benefits of transparency are numerous. It helps the policymaker make informed borrowing decisions. It helps creditors and rating agencies review sovereign creditworthiness. It helps investors in decision making, and it keeps citizens informed how government is spending public funds. I have taken good note that debt transparency is part of the workshop agenda. It is clear that transparency supports prosperity. The more transparent countries are awarded higher credit ratings, enjoy lower borrowing costs, and stand a better chance of attracting foreign direct investment. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, sustainable bonds is also on the agenda over the next 2 days. As we all know, the bond market has evolved very rapidly over the last decade as an alternative way to raise debt. Local laws and regulations have also evolved to keep pace with changing expectations of industry players. With the processing climate agenda and a view to positioning Mauritius as an attractive jurisdiction for sustainable finance, the Bank of Mauritius, as mentioned by the Governor, published 2 years ago a guide for the issue of sustainable bonds in Mauritius. The guide was issued with a view to assisting potential issuers in better understanding the legal and regulatory requirements for the issue of sustainable bonds and the listing of these bonds on exchanges licensed in Mauritius. The Financial Services Commission, on its part, published in December 2021 the guidelines on the issue of corporate and green bonds in Mauritius. Both the Bank of Mauritius and the FSC guides demonstrate the jurisdiction's commitment to best international practice with references to the International Capital Market Association's Green Bond Principles. The first ever green bond issue issuance by Sin Finance in 2022 for an amount of 3 billion rupees is indicative of the market's interest and confidence in the improved legislative framework. Mauritius is well on track and pursuing its objective of being recognized as the sustainable finance gateway into Africa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my ministry is currently in the process of designing an ESG framework for ESG disclosures and ESG risk management with the aim of satisfying, amongst others, the following: ESG performance across key environmental and social metrics, ESG compliance, ESG disclosures, including data reporting, and I'm also pleased to announce that we have received a grant from the African Development Bank for the development of our ESG framework for impactful investment. Ladies and gentlemen, our ambition is also to lead the way in the field of sustainable finance on the continent. We are here today, standing on the right side of history. We are here to help shape an important dialogue that will guide history. So I wish to reiterate my thanks to all of you present here for bringing your expertise and experience at this forum and for taking time off busy schedule to partake in such constructive and open exchanges. I reiterate my special thanks to the OECD for formidable leadership and continued support to Mauritius and the region. We are grateful for the OECD's presence, pledges, and positive contribution to our part of the world. With these words, I wish you all the best for an insightful and productive workshop, and I thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you, Honorable Mr. Serraton. Ladies and gentlemen, our next esteemed guest is Dr. the Honorable Ranganaden Parachi, Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Development. The Honorable Minister, Dr. Ranganaden Parachi, oversees the development and implementation of economic policies that affect us all. His expertise and leadership in this field are widely recognized, and we are privileged to have him with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the Honorable Minister, Dr. Ranganaden Parachi. Come on stage.
The Honorable Mahen Kumar Serraton, Minister of Financial Services and Good Governance, Mr. Arbesh Kumar Sigulam, Governor of the Bank of Mauritius and Chairperson of the RC Governing Board, Mr. Maudaya Kuna Yaukunundu, Chairperson of the Financial Services Commission and First Deputy Governor, Mrs. Emlata Sadna Gopal, Second Deputy Governor, Bank of Mauritius, Mr. Carmine Binoya, Director for Finance and Enterprise Affairs of the OECD, members of the RC Governing Board, members of the Bank of Mauritius Board, members of the Diplomatic Corps, board members of the Financial Services Commission, representatives of the OECD, friends of the press, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. It is my privilege to open the 12th International Workshop hosted by the Regional Center of Excellence in collaboration with the OECD on the key topic of sovereign debt, sustainable bonds, and debt transparency. Announced in the budget 2018-2019, the ERC was set up in March 2019. Only a few months after a memorandum of understanding was signed at the highest level by our Honorable Prime Minister, Pravin Kumar Jagnat, and Mr. Angel Gurria, former Secretary General of the OECD. Since its inception, the RC has trained over 3,700 participants from 113 countries. I take this opportunity to thank the OECD, its management team, including Carmen here with us virtually, and the present Secretary General, Mr. Marcel Skorman, for their unflinching support and willingness to further strengthen our cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, as we close the COVID-19 chapter and are faced with the adverse impact of climate change, reflecting on sovereign debt management, debt transparency, and sustainable finance is very timely. As you all know, sovereign debt is the money that a country's government borrows from domestic or foreign lenders with an obligation to repay this debt in due time. Sovereign bonds are one of the primary tools through which this borrowing occurs. Mauritius, like any other country, uses these financial instruments to fund infrastructure development and invest in critical sectors. From a global perspective, it is worth noting that in the last 2 decades, the international, domestic, and external debt has increased more than 5 times due to the COVID-19 pandemic and war in Ukraine. This trend has unfortunately even further accelerated since 2020. Many countries, especially in Africa, have seen their debt to GDP ratio rocket rocketed to historic peaks. Ladies and gentlemen, in Mauritius, while increasing our debt was necessary to support our economy and our population going through the worst crisis of our history, the government strategy is providing very fruitful results. The government strategy, both in terms of economic recovery and fiscal consolidation, has allowed our debt and deficit levels to steadily decline from 92% in June 2021. Mauritius' public debt currently stands at 79% of the country's GDP, which is already below the IMF fiscal anchor set up at 80%. In view of this positive trend, no later than yesterday, the rating agency Moody's has published a credit opinion on Mauritius, increasing our fiscal strength rating from BA2 in May 2023 to BAA3. Moody's wrote a quote, "After a significant rise during the coronavirus pandemic, the government debt to GDP ratio has declined, aided by a post-pandemic recovery. Overall, Mauritius' scorecard is now in the range of BAA1 to BAA3, while it was set between BAA3 to BA2 only a few weeks ago." Another leading rating agency, Standard & Poor's, also commented positively on the Mauritian economic performances and the government strategy. Indeed, by granting us a BBB- A-3 rating, S&P confirms our investment grade status and underlines that Mauritius boasts an effective policy making and a stable political environment. Standard & Poor's equally forecast strong short-term and medium-term growth with an average GDP growth of 4.3% for the period 2023 to 2026. These international perspectives not only validate Mauritius' approach to managing its sovereign debt, but also enhance the country's credibility in the global financial market. With a robust growth of 8.8% in 2022 and a forecasted growth of 8% for the fiscal year 2023-2024, our aim is to further reduce our sovereign debt to its pre-pandemic level. This objective has been clearly stated in the last budget speech. Ladies and gentlemen, by maintaining a cautious approach to borrowing and a very low exposure to international markets, Mauritius is successfully managing its sovereign debt and supporting its long-term economic growth. Lowering our debt to GDP ratio in a transparent manner is also key to allocate resources to different strategic sectors such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure, and to finance our climate agenda. As a matter of fact, in the realm of sustainable finance, Mauritius is also making significant strides. The government of Mauritius, under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, continues to show its proactive stance towards sustainability and its determination to integrate environmental consideration into its financial sector. As announced in my 2022-2023 budget speech, the government will extend the exemption of interest income derived from bonds to finance renewable energy projects to all sustainable projects and introduce a carbon trading framework for both blue and green credits developed by the Bank of Mauritius. Recently, the nation marked a milestone with the issuance of the first national guide on sustainable bonds in Mauritius by the Bank of Mauritius in June 2021. This was followed by the Financial Services Commission publishing the guidelines for issue of corporate and green bonds in Mauritius in December 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, further to the announcement made in the budget 2022-2023, I'm pleased to inform you that my ministry, together with the Central Bank, has finalized the ESG framework for the issuance of sovereign, green, blue, and social bonds. The government continued commitment to exploring innovative funding models like green bonds and impact investments reflects its foresight and adaptability in an ever-evolving global financial landscape. Ensuring the sustainability and management of sovereign debt will continue to be a key economic priority for Mauritius as it shapes its future towards sustained and inclusive growth. As Mark Carney, UN Special Envoy on Climate Action and Finance rightly said, we all have a role in this adjustment. One of the most basic rules is asking questions. On financing climate adaptation and mitigation in emerging economies like Mauritius, we have to scale up the support provided by multilateral development banks and bilateral donors. If we don't want to see developing countries being bankrupt as they cannot service their debt anymore, it is imperative to work on blended finance, where some public finance leverages private finance. Ladies and gentlemen, looking ahead, Mauritius will continue to take a proactive, compliant, and strategic approach to managing its sovereign debt while funding its green transformation. Mauritius will further collaborate with international bodies, learning from global best practices, and staying abreast of the latest developments in debt management. By doing so, sovereign debt will remain a tool for crucial investment and sustainable development rather than a liability. Our way forward is certainly charted by a blend of innovation, transparency, responsibility, and sustainability. Together with the public and private sector and our population, we look forward to the journey ahead, meeting the challenges of tomorrow while ensuring the prosperity of our nation. On this note, I wish you very fruitful deliberations and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. the Honorable Renganadin Padiachi. I now request Dr. the Honorable Rengadin Padiachi, the Honorable Minister Mahen Kumar Seratan, Mr. Albesh Sigulam, Mr. Koina Yurukulindu, and all governing board members, Pauline and Mr. Gopal, to come on stage for a souvenir photo, please.